Welcome to Leadership Brothers Podcast, Episode 4. I am Gibson Piper.
And I am Brock Piper.
We discussed extreme ownership in depth over the last 3 podcasts, so it's only right that we move on to The Dichotomy of Leadership, also by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. Brock hold up the book so they can see the cover, so if people want to purchase it or follow along, that's what the book looks like. I don't have a cover because I don't like them, and Brock was not happy with that.
I was unhappy. I think you should have a cover to the book so you know what you're reading.
So the introduction starts off with basically them just recapping everything we just talked about for 3 podcasts. If you want to see those previous podcasts, the links are in the description below, as well as on our main YouTube page. So I took a couple just quick hitting highlights from the introduction. He just said the AOIC was cool under fire. A great quality every leader should work toward, which I agree completely, because when I was the head coach for a couple games, you can get overwhelmed really quickly if you aren't just relaxed and kind of patient on the sideline. When I coached AAU, it was the same thing. I try to just kind of let my mind go clear and kind of was patient and let everything kind of come in and then make a decision. He also says on page 7, the goal of all leaders should be to work themselves out of a job. Thought that was great because that means you're building up, your assistants and your staff to be to a point where it's they can do it better than you can.
Exactly.
And then he talks about just the laws of combat, which we talked about in the last 3 podcasts, and I still highlighted complexity breeds chaos and disaster, especially when things go wrong, and things always go wrong. I love that part of it. And that's all I had for the introduction.
Yeah.
Because we covered those ad nauseum in the previous 3 episodes. So chapter 1 is called The Ultimate Dichotomy.
Yeah.
The whole goal of this book is basically to talk about the dichotomy of leadership in the sense of you can have too much or too little of one of those principles.
Yeah.
So you can have too much extreme ownership, too little, different things they cover in these chapters.
I think it was weird to think about too when I first heard you can have too much extreme ownership, and I think in the first story, I think it was the first story, the guy was like, you can have too much extreme ownership, and I was kind of like, I'm with you, like you can own too much, and then it goes into it, it makes sense. I was like, at first that didn't really make sense, but then when he talks about it, it makes sense. So I was like kind of confused at first as well.
Yeah, and I mean that's pretty much the gist of what the book is about. So in the next few podcasts, and probably in the future, we're probably only going to do 2 chapters at a time. We did, I think, 4 at a time.
Yeah.
The last 3, and it was just we couldn't go in as much in-depth detail as we wanted.
Yeah.
So after talking about it, we decided we're going to do 2 chapters at a time, go more in-depth, more detailed, more focused. Maybe less time, doesn't really matter. But we're trying to get grow, not just have a long podcast.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
easier to watch, in my opinion, as well.
yes. Chapter 1 is the ultimate dichotomy. Now, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on this first part. I don't think it would be right, just because they talk about some of the brothers that they lost, and it was just really intense, and I think that's their story to tell.
Yep, I agree.
But some of the things that I did kind of highlight in those stories, one of my favorite quotes was, if you cut wood, you get sawdust.
Yeah.
Right? And he's like, when you have war, you're going to have casualties, but when you cut wood, you get sawdust. I was like, that's a really good kind of quick bullet point, teaching point that you can say, like, hey, if you do this, this is going to happen in whatever you're doing.
Exactly.
And then basically, just he said, he's kind of summing up the mission and how to accomplish the mission. He said the leader must take and make decisions and execute plans and strategies that might cost the men he loves so very, very much their lives. And obviously, that's in war, but also it applies to life. It's just amplified in the realm of war, and I can't even imagine that burden of that leadership.
Yeah, that takes a whole nother level of leadership that I don't think a lot of us can even begin to comprehend.
So they tell the story to talk about the ultimate dichotomy of leadership, right? Or the number one thing that is the hardest thing to do as a leader. And as much as you care for your men, as a leader, you have to do your duty to accomplish the mission.
Yeah.
right? Now, the way that this scales down, where it's less intense, to where if you're running a program, if you're running a team, if you're a CEO, you're going to have to make decisions, cut players, stop giving them playing time, change up positions and make those tough decisions that is for the betterment of the team or the mission. So that's where I kind of had that down for me.
Descale it a lot down to like that, because that's not even that's maybe livelihood in a high school setting. I mean, cutting up players' time is nothing equal to anything to do with what they're talking about, So
yeah, it reminds me of the 2015 finals between the Golden State Warriors and the Cavs, and basically Steve Kerr benched Andrew Bogut from Game 5 on.
Yeah.
Because he just couldn't play against LeBron in that team. And it was, I think it was like 2-2 at one point, and the Warriors won the next 2 games easily. Just wiped them out. But he had to make that really tough decision to bench a starter all year who has been an integral part of their team, of their leadership. Former number 1 pick. It could look really bad, but he had to do it for the betterment of the team.
Yeah, the same thing you kind of talk about reminds me of. I don't remember the exact quarterback. Alabama, maybe 2-3 years ago, same time frame. They had, I don't. Do you remember who
Jalen Hurts
and
Tua?
Yeah. So Jalen Hurts had been playing. I mean, lights out like the whole year, and then the championship game, the first half wasn't playing well, and the coaches took him out, put the next guy in, and they ended up winning. So like to have Saban be that good, like confident being a leader of coach and doing all those things and doing that was incredible, because I think everybody was shocked, including the Clemson side.
Yeah.
They're probably
Georgia.
Sorry.
Right.
No. Was it Georgia?
I don't know.
Georgia, Clemson, they're all good teams just getting up in there. I don't know exactly.
Very good team in the national championship game.
I was going to say either team would have been.
Sorry to that fan base, or not sorry to that fan base. Sorry.
Yes, we like football games. Sorry about that. But
I think a part of that goes into building that culture, though.
Yeah.
And recruiting like at Alabama, recruiting those type of players that if that decision's made, that they'll be there to support, and that's Jalen Hurts speaks to his character. He was there, supportive, happy, celebrating, really excited. So yes, that was, I think that is a big part of it too, is building that program and that culture out to where you can, if you make that decision, that the players you have are with you.
Because, like Saban probably loves Jalen Hurts, but he didn't want to compromise the mission. So he had, the right mentality of, hey, this mission is winning the game. This is the best way to do it,
Yeah.
Aside feelings,
Sure.
So I thought that was really cool.
Okay, so we'll just skip ahead to the principle, which is the just talking about the dichotomy of that extreme ownership and the ultimate dichotomy. On page 29, he says, a good leader must build powerful, strong relationships with his or her subordinates, but while that leader would do anything for those team members, the leader must recognize there is a job to do, and that job might put the very people the leader cares about so much at risk. So that is kind of the exact what we just talked about, right? Wrapping that up nice and neat into a good kind of sentence, right? Care about your people, build the relationships, but be able to make those tough decisions when those tough decisions come.
Yeah, and I feel like being, I don't have any. Like right now I'm mainly a follower as far as when it goes to being a coaching speak, So I feel like it's going to be, I think for me, it would probably take a long time to like be able to understand that and really like apply. Because I feel like with most people, when you get like connected with someone and you build a strong relationship with someone, then like when the time comes and feel like you have to do like the hard thing, like hey, we're going to fire you or let you go or whatever, like that's not like an easy thing to do. And I don't know, like I think of even during like the application to business, the guy was like, these are my friends, they have families, the whole 9 yards of why you wouldn't want to do that. And I feel like I'm kind of like the CEO in that situation. Like I wouldn't want to put my like friends or whatever through that. I feel like that is a thing I'm gonna have to like think about and really like work on, even at a young age.
I think that's everybody though. Just because it's human nature to have empathy. Yeah. As little as I feel like I have at times, I still, like, for my players, like, for those relationships you build, like, you have tremendous empathy for them. And I mean, as a young coach, you're still leading up the chain of command. You're still going to be developing. It's more important for you to develop relationship with the players now than it is when you're the head coach. Because when you're the head coach, you can't always focus on the little things, like
That's
which
true.
we'll touch on.
Yeah.
So if you're coaching just the cornerbacks, you're going to get as close as possible to all those guys in that room.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens when you realize one of them isn't very good and this other guy is, and you have to go to the head coach, you have to make that decision.
That's true.
I mean, he ultimately might have the final say, but you're close enough to the situation and to those players where it's like, hey, this isn't working. This is why.
Yeah.
So you're still going to have those situations and those scenarios in your everyday life too.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at it almost as like a relationship with like a girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
You're ultimately deciding if you're going to be with that person the rest of the night, no matter how old you are. That's kind of what that's the end goal.
That's
right?
yeah. That's
the
I was gonna
end
say
game.
that's the mission. I actually wrote that down. The end game in my notes.
So it's like, are you going to marry that person, or are you going to end that relationship that you care about?
True.
I've had to end a couple of relationships that I care about, but for the ultimate mission of my overall happiness, I had to do it.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of look at it. Like, you can still apply it to everything you do in life.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Because most things in our lives are built on relationships.
Oh yeah, I would say almost half of not half. Sorry, what is it? Half? A lot of things are relationship built, or like, because the cliche saying, like, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's like, oh, my dad knows the principal at this school. Like, now I can, I might have a better chance of getting an interview just because I know that relationship with my dad, and he has a good relationship with that guy, and then that, kind of like, that kind of how it works. I see what you're saying.
It's more about who knows you. Remember that.
Ooh, that's nice. I like that.
Yep, because
I like that.
Because like you can know them, but if they don't know you, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just remember, it's about who knows you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's true. That's a good point.
So on page 30, I have a long highlighted paragraph, and I'm going to read it out, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay.
So he talks about kind of just the extreme dichotomy in both directions. Some leaders get so close to their people that they don't want to have hard conversations with them. They don't want to tell them that they need to improve. On the other hand, if a leader is too detached from the team, he or she may overwork, overexpose, or otherwise harm its members while achieving no significant value from that sacrifice. The leader may be too quick to fire people to save a buck, thereby developing the reputation about not caring about the team beyond its ability to support the strategic goals. So, you can be too close and too far. So let's talk about being too close, right? When you're so close to your team, so close in relationships, so tight knit that you cannot make those tough decisions, it will ruin everything you're doing. And I think for me, I think this is more about being liked than it is about being respected or being a good leader. That's where I kind of see it. Where it's like, if you have a team and you've built a team, or you're in charge of people, you want them to like you. Right?
Of course,
I mean,
of course.
Everybody
if
wants that.
no one likes you, then no one's going to listen to you, essentially, unless they're like just scared of you, or
Right. But even then, if I don't like my boss or something that they're doing from a personal standpoint, I have zero motivation to actually do what I'm supposed to do, unless it's the threat of being fired because of it.
100%.
So that to me is like where it comes into play, where it's like, do I like this person? Do they like me? Like, are we cool? Like, are they upset? Are they going to get upset if I say this or if I think this? Right? So for me, one of those examples that I can think of was when I was in charge of, I was the pool manager.
Yeah.
Right? And I was younger. I was like 22, maybe 23.
Yeah.
I think. And I was in charge of like 6-7 people just at a pool. It was a relaxed job. It was great. I mean, paid good money. It was fine. I was in charge of just the normal manager stuff. But I was always focused on, and the kids that I had were like, 14 to 18, 14 to 17.
Like
so
like high schoolers, essentially.
Not really in my peer group, but close enough. And I just always remembered I wanted them to like me.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't do certain things. I wouldn't always, hold them accountable to every little detail and just let things go because I thought it made me look cool.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think falling into that trap of getting people to like you is where I think that comes into play with getting so close to them.
Yeah, I think so. Because I mean, looking back at a couple of the jobs that I've had, I can, pick two or three from different jobs that I've been like, yeah, I can tell this guy's like he's the manager in charge of me and everything, but he lets things slide, And then I think when you do that, like me being as someone that I know who lets this slide, when I'm working and he's the manager working, I can kind of relax and do whatever I want now. Not whatever I'm gonna get the job done, but then it's like, my shirt needs to be tucked in. If it's untucked, he won't say anything. Now I know for the rest of the day I can have my shirt untucked, and then someone walks in, sees that, and they may be like, what, that's like a very small thing, but like you're essentially allowing the people below you to keep just kind of slacking and going away from what they're like supposed to be doing, and it can build and get worse and worse with time. So
yeah, and that flows into detachment, where it's you're so far back, where you're just like, yeah, and I think it starts with one thing, right? So finding the balance early is extremely important. Where if you let one thing go, it's just going to snowball into everything. It's going to start kind of falling apart.
Exactly.
Right. So, anything else that you wanted to add before we get to the application to business?
No, I don't think so. I think we kind of, I think we touched on everything I wanted to speak about right there.
Do you want to talk about the application to business story with the mind and how the people work hard?
Yeah. So essentially, there was a CEO, and I think there were 6 mines total, and they had to close a mine down. I don't know. I don't think it specifically said what they're mining for. Just some things. Maybe it was just some combustible. I honestly don't know. Anyways, they're in a mine. Very dangerous situations. One thing got shut down. I think there was 600 employees throughout the 5 mines, and then the 6th one got closed. And the CEO not CEO. What am I saying? It's the general manager, right? Or is it the leader? The leader of the group, took 157 or 37 people from the thing that got closed, and he wanted to have their jobs there. So he brought them over to the 5 mines and kind of did that. So they kind of had too many workers, but they were working hard enough. And then he was saying like, this guy's, on the backhoe, the machine, he's one of the best ones I've ever seen. Like, he's an expert. There's no way I could ever like fire him. He's so good. He's got 4 kids. He's got a great family. He's a good person, everything like that. But then Jocko was kind of like, well, I think you're too close. Kind of, we're talking about like, this is one where you're too close to these guys, to your team members. You're too close to these people, so you don't want to hurt them, which is okay, because like you said, it's human nature not to want to hurt your friend or something, So he didn't really know what to do. Then Jocko kind of explained it more about what we just kind of went into a little bit, and then the guy ended up firing or letting go 80 people, or 80 people, and then production picked up again, and everything kind of went smoothly, even though it was really hard for him to do. But that's kind of ended up like that's kind of what happened.
Yeah. And a couple of key points that I kind of highlighted was when Jocko was talking to him about it. He said, look, you are the leader, and that comes with a heavy burden. In the military, we call it the burden of command. It is a responsibility you feel for the lives of the people you work for you. Right? Like, you are responsible for them and their livelihood. It's their job.
Like,
right?
They expect you to give them the paycheck every single, 2 weeks or whatever it is.
Yes. And one of the most important paragraphs that I highlighted was, in an effort to try to save the jobs of 147 employees, you are putting at risk the other 5 mines and 600 jobs, the entire mission. If you don't make hard decisions, that's exactly what will happen, right? If you don't step up and lead, what do you think corporate will do? And he said, they'll shut us down or I'll be fired. So Jocko basically said, what would be better for everyone here? To get shut down completely, or to have someone else replace you, and they bring in someone who doesn't care about them, doesn't know how important they are, their families, and their livelihood?
Just slash it, yeah.
So then you kind of present it like that, and you're like, oh, well, I have to make tough decisions now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? So the leader must care about the troops, but at the same time, the leader must complete the mission. And in doing so, there will be risks and sometimes unavoidable consequences to the troops. That is the ultimate dichotomy.
Yeah. It must be the ultimate one, because that sounds like the most... I mean, I've only read 2 chapters so far, but it sounds like that would probably be one of the toughest things, just because human nature is to like, oh, you're my friend, let's take care of you. Like, I'm gonna help you out and not fire you. You know what I'm saying? Even, so...
Yeah.
I think, I think like right at the end, I wrote down, drive the team to complete the mission, but don't drive them off a cliff. I don't know. I was like, I read that like, that makes that makes sense to me. Like I was like, I like that because like you got to lead the team, drive the team. Don't go too far and drive them off cliff. And you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I don't know. I really like that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, chapter 2. Own it all, but empower others. Okay, so another kind of tough examples of them basically getting into a gunfight.
Yeah.
They were in like a house. They're trying to clear the house and get some targets. And basically, as they were coming back, they talked about kind of their organization, right? So as they get back to the main compound, one of the things that I really liked is they were still in their op gear in case they needed to go back out, and they did the debrief all right there, right? What went right, what went wrong, and the first thing they do when they get back to the compound is what?
They fill up the Humvees.
Just in case you gotta go right back out.
You get back out. You gotta be prepared.
I thought that was interesting, and I don't have a metaphor for how that applies to coaching.
Nope.
But I'm looking. I've been thinking about it a lot because I'm like, after a game, how do we refuel? So
Film?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
I
don't know either. Yeah, that's a good thought.
So yes, that was kind of my like thought process. Like, okay, after a game, how do we refilm? How do we debrief? So
that's a tough question. Yeah, that's a good question.
Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about.
So we talked about the mission planning, right? And he talks about basically early on he owned everything.
Yeah.
Right. He was all about planning every minute detail, everything covered in detail, everything he could possibly be in charge of. He was in charge of. Right. And he said he wanted his junior personnel to step up and take ownership and lead some of the missions themselves, but they didn't. They weren't. Right. They weren't stepping up. He continued to oversee everything in detail and micromanaged.
Yeah.
Right. Until they had to do 4 separate missions at once. And then he was like, oh, well, now I need help. Right. I guess we'll have to rely on them, and I'll make sure they don't screw up.
Yeah.
Right. So as the junior leaders planned the missions and built everything, they did an amazing job.
Yeah.
They planned it all great. They took ownership of it. They were aggressive with it. They did everything the right way. And he said, but my ownership had to be balanced with decentralized command. He needed to allow them to own the mission at their level so they were fully empowered and could execute and lead from their positions. Right? The reason that they hadn't stepped up prior to this is he didn't allow it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty simple. Right?
Yeah.
You're so overbearing. You're so in charge that the other people aren't in charge of leading it.
I feel like that's hard to do though a little bit. Well, in the sense of I think it would be difficult because, like, so I'm a leader and I have 2 people, that are under me and they work for me. So essentially, it'd be like a head coach and then coordinators or whatever. And say you give all the control, kind of like that. You give it all. You're like, okay, your offense, your defense, go out, fully trust you guys, do it, and they do a really bad job. It's still your fault. I feel like that's a hard thing for me to grasp. It's like, man, I gave you all the control and you did all the work, everything. I didn't help at all. I let you take everything, and you failed, but it's my fault. Not your fault. It's my fault. It's like I think it's hard to take the own the be in extreme ownership when you didn't plan anything and you didn't really put anything into the details and do all that kind of stuff. Do you understand what I'm saying? I feel like that's a hard thing to own up to and be like, yeah, well, it was my fault that it's kind of like that I let you do whatever you wanted. Not whatever you wanted, but...
Yeah, there's two key things. So the first one is you should be able to lead your direct subordinates so well and in such detail and teach your expectations, your values, how you want everything taught, that when they go out and do it, it's secondhand nature for them.
True.
So that way, it's almost like you are teaching it to your players.
Because the coaches know exactly what you want and what you expect.
They understand your mission.
They're just resonating what... Yeah, okay. That makes a lot more sense.
So they understand what your mission, your expectations are, how you would do everything. And that's a big part of you being a leader to them.
Yeah.
This is what my expectations are, how we're going to accomplish the mission. Here's how we're going to do it. Now you guys are in charge to go do it.
Okay.
Now you don't necessarily say exactly how they do it. You have to give them some freedom, like he's talking about.
Yeah, and the creativity is
right.
Yes.
Let them be creative. Let them have their freedom, because what'll happen is they'll do something that you didn't expect and you didn't think about.
Yeah.
And you'll go, oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Like, that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That footwork is really good. I never even thought about that, or I didn't learn that.
For sure.
Because they're going to be learning things too. So when you empower them to do all that, and they come back at you with different things, and they know what your overall mission is, then they're when they fail, it is like you fail, and that's okay.
That makes a lot more sense than what I was saying.
Yeah. So, and the biggest thing when you're in charge of like a team, when the team wins, the players were great, the assistant coaches were great. When the team loses, it's your fault. That's it. That's literally the end of it. Because you are the head coach. Right? When you win, you should deflect all praise and you should give everybody else credit. When you lose, it's all your fault.
It's all your fault.
And that's the hardest thing with coaching.
That's really hard.
You have to be extremely selfless. And you have to understand the actual details, because what happened is your assistant coach built the scouting report. Your other assistant coach built the scheme for offense and defense. Your third and fourth assistant with the football, they're doing the skill development stuff. They're working with players and film. Right? You're in charge of the whole operation, but they're a big credit to why you're successful if you do it the right way.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So that's how the successful team is built, is you have the overall mission. Here's how we're going to play. Here's why we're going to play that way, right? And it shows. So like when I'm coaching with Tilden, it shows that he is basically doing this to a T, because when I first came in, the first thing he did the first day was like, hey, run this drill. And then didn't get no other instructions. We sat down, he talked about the 5 things he wants to accomplish every day. Here's how they want to accomplish it. Then he said, do this. I want you to do a shooting drill. And that was it. Here's the overall mission. Here's the overall goals.
Yeah.
Here's the kind of shell that I want you to do it in, as in like shooting.
Yeah.
And then let me go. So he empowered me immediately from the start. Yeah. And obviously going to a new program, a new coaching staff, and a successful program, I'm always like, okay, like I know I'm very good at what I do. Yeah. But I have to make sure they know I'm very good at what I do too. So there's a fine balance between me trying to take ownership, but not take over ownership. If that makes sense. I don't want to take over what I'm doing. I just want to do what I'm doing the best of my ability in that one area, as long as I know what his expectations are, and I can do that. So like his expectations were 5 different things. I combined 4 of those into one drill. Yeah. Right. So that's how you kind of apply that in a real life situation. Yeah. Where it's like if you're the subordinate going, in the mission, you have to figure that out. That's how you kind of do it. But also as the head guy, you have to empower them with the mission. If that makes sense.
No, that definitely makes sense for sure.
Yeah. And a big thing with that, as a head coach, you have so many other things to worry about than the actual like fine details. Yeah. I mean, you can focus on the fine details, but if you're so focused on them, you're going to miss the overall culture, the overall program, the overall team development, everything that you need to be a part of, which is what they kind of say here. The benefits of kind of being able to empower the team and stepping back a little bit was seeing the big picture, not focused on the specific operation. He was able to see how the different operations played together, right? And then also with the subordinate leadership running the operations, he had a chance to piece together the overall mission intelligence picture with everybody. So what wasn't only just the missions that were going on next to him. Yeah. It was the overall grand scheme, right? Which is super important. True extreme ownership meant that all responsibility rested with me as a leader. It didn't mean that I, as a leader, personally did everything myself. Right, which is kind of what I was just
kind of speaking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So as he noticed that his senior SEAL petty officer was running things kind of loose. Remember that? Yeah. So basically, he gave ownership to the SEAL platoon leader. And the SEAL they were conducting a naval operation where they had to be there early in the morning, and they had to do all the different things with the mission. And basically, as the mission was building, some little things started kind of going wrong. right? Just little things. Showing up at 6:59 for 7 a.m. mission start, right? Which gave me anxiety thinking about it.
I was like,
because I'm always like, if I'm 15 minutes early, I'm 15 minutes late. That's how I kind of look at things.
Yeah.
I got that from Dad, Lombardi time.
Yeah.
Right. Vince Lombardi was always 15 minutes early. He said always watches 15 minutes early.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore because everything is online and digital.
I was gonna say it's pretty hard to do
I can do it in my car. So my car is 20 minutes early. Like you can do it little things. But yeah, so I got that from Dad at a young age, which was great. I hate being late. Drives me insane.
I'm with you on that one.
Good luck getting married.
Thank you.
It's one of the hardest. It's the hardest battle. So you have to lie about the time.
I was gonna say just be like, hey, we're leaving at if you want to leave at 6 o'clock. Hey, we're leaving at 5:45.
That's what you do.
So you leave at 6 o'clock and you're like, hey, we're on time. Exactly.
So back to the story. Mission day comes.
Yeah.
Right. Or the practice mission day.
Rehearsal, right? Rehearsal.
With the senior guy, like the big dog. And Jocko's overseeing it, right? There's a leader in charge. He's overseeing it. And mission day comes, and guess what? 2 guys are late.
By 7 minutes.
7 minutes late on that day. So they waited because it's just a practice, just rehearsal for it.
That too. Plus, I think they needed them. Like, without them.
Yeah,
like
you need everybody on it.
Normally, they would just leave, and then those 2 guys would get in trouble, but they needed them because they were the ones that were helping out and working with them. So they actually waited, which is not, normal.
Yeah. Yeah. So now that everybody got there, right? They're there. So they're starting everything, and all of a sudden, something's missing. It was just a
half-inch nylon tube or something? Just a tube, right?
The 1-inch tubular nylon.
There you go. I don't know what that is or what it does, but they're missing it.
No idea what that is. But Jocko says, once again, I was disappointed, embarrassed, and angry.
Yeah.
It was clear that as a leader, I had been too hands-off. So they ended up piecing it together, figuring something out. After that, then it was a realization of I screwed up, right? I was not as disciplined as I could be. I wasn't in charge of the leader who's in charge of the team, right? Head coach in charge of the assistant coach in charge of the team.
Yep.
That's kind of where I look at it, right? So we bring him in the office, let him know a little bit about it, let him know that he could do everything himself, but he doesn't want to, right? So after that kind of speech, never happened again. They fixed it.
I think it was great. Yep.
So I thought that was really a really good story of like how that actually would work in the real world.
Yeah.
Right. You're 2 hands off with one of your assistant coaches. You let them do kind of like what you were saying. Let them do whatever they want, and then they screw up, and it's your fault.
It's because you didn't like kind of what you started. You didn't tell them exactly.
Right.
You let it happen essentially.
Yeah. What I'm saying, that's the cycle of blame, though. I think.
Yeah.
That's how it starts.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like you want to empower your assistant coach to do something. They don't do a very good job because you didn't do a very good job with them. So you blame them for not doing a very good job.
Exactly.
Right. So the overall blame is on you, but you are now defensive.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is their fault. Right? They're not doing their job.
Yeah, that doesn't help or the assistant coach, or whoever you are blaming.
Well, ultimately, it doesn't help the mission.
Well, that's the
biggest thing.
That's more important than either. Yeah, exactly.
So it doesn't matter if it helps us or not.
Yeah.
It doesn't help the mission. That's why, like, being an assistant coach to me is actually really fun. Because it's like you have to basically drop all of your personal preference and drop your ego. And just whatever the head coach says, you have to go along with. Not blindly.
Yeah.
You can question it. You can bring up certain things, and you can bring up important points. But at the end of the day, if that's what the head coach wants, that's what you're going to do. And if that's what you're going to do, and it goes directly conflicts with your like coaching philosophy, you better figure out a way to make that work for you. And that's why I think being an assistant coach is one of the most selfless jobs you could ever have.
Yeah.
Because you got to do that. And that's hard. That's not easy.
That's
hard. So now it helps if your head coach kind of like trusts you and you've kind of built that trust, and they can say, hey, I want to do this a little bit better, and I'm not sure how we do it. I want you to be in charge of how we do it.
Yeah.
Right? I want us to play a little bit faster on offense. Not sure how. You're in charge of that. Come back with a solution. That's where you can build that trust, and that's where it's fun.
Definitely.
But if you don't have that trust and they're still kind of figuring things out, that's when you have to drop your ego, figure out what they want and how they want it, and how you can do that.
Yeah.
So that to me kind of was where I went with that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So it talks about the principle and basically micromanagement versus handoff leadership style.
Yeah.
Right. So micromanagement fails because no one person can control multiple people executing a vast number of actions in a dynamic environment, where changes in the situation occur rapidly with unpredictability. It also inhibits the growth of subordinates. When people become accustomed to being told what to do, they begin to await direction.
When I read that, I was like, I like that.
Yeah, because it's for sure a huge thing where it's like, Tilden was running late for practice. I can't remember what it was, but he was gonna be like 5 minutes late. So he texted me and said, "Get everybody warmed up." Right. So 5 o'clock hit, we got everybody warmed up, and he still wasn't there by the time they're done warming up. I'd already made the decision. I'm gonna do a warm up shooting drill no matter what happens.
Yeah.
We're not gonna sit around and waste time.
Of course
Right.
not.
We go to the weight room first, but you know what? I'm not comfortable there. I don't really know exactly what he wants in that situation. Nobody else was there, so guess what? We're gonna do a shooting drill. So we just did a warm up shooting drill. Tilden came in, and we were in the middle of the drill. I said, "Weight room?" He said, "No, finish the drill." When we finished the drill, we went to the weight room afterwards. He didn't say a word about it.
Yeah.
I mean, he just said, "Thanks for help, thanks for covering."
Yeah.
You know. So to me, that was like him not micromanaging. He told me what to do, but then didn't give me any further instructions or anything else.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if he told me to go to the weight room, we'd go to the weight room, and we I know what to do in there, but we'd figure it out.
Of
But
course.
he basically just was like, "Hey, get him warmed up." And to me, being a part of warmed up was just doing that form shooting stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like cool. So that's to me, that's like a good way of the balance between not micromanaging, but also still managing. Right. So talks about on page 50 the common symptoms that result from micromanagement.
Yeah.
Right. Do you have a favorite one? Okay, because there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them, and I was just like, these all make sense. I don't have,
Yeah. To me, there was 2 that stood out. Number 4 is bold and aggressive action becomes rare.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Bold and aggressive action becomes rare. And number 5, creativity grinds to a halt. To me, this applies to me more than anything else. The creativity grinds to a halt. Because as coaches, you want control of everything. And when you're controlling everything, you take away what they could do possibly. So for me, when I teach like passing and stuff like that, I'll tell them the general of like, hey, make sure you just, step in with your 1 foot and snap your wrist. I don't care about anything else.
Yeah.
Right. And then what'll happen is we're playing a game and a kid will throw a behind the back pass. Right.
Yeah.
And like, let's say he throws a behind the back pass and it goes out of bounds. Doesn't connect. Right. What's your reaction?
Like as a coach, what's your reaction?
Yeah, you have to figure out what your reaction is going to be.
I would probably. I mean, wait. What do you mean? Like right in the moment? I don't know. Well, me, if my action is that, I'd probably get a little mad.
Let's say your quarterback tries to force a ball into a really tight window, right? And it gets almost intercepted.
Yeah.
What's your reaction?
That's a teaching moment, I think, maybe.
Is it?
I don't know. It depends on your philosophy. Because if I tell him, hey, like, don't try to fit it in there, and if it's the first time, and then like, say it's the 3rd down, and then they got a punt, hey, come here, bring him over, like, hey, man, this is the coaching point I was talking about in practice. That's a tight window that we don't need you to throw away, or tuck it and run. But if it's like the 8th time, then you can get a little bit more like, hey, man, like, or a little not angry. I don't know, but you know what I'm saying? I think.
But what if he thought the receiver was open, and the next window he knows he's going to pump fake and then throw it for a bomb touchdown?
That's not his call to make.
That's his creativity.
I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying.
You just gotta think about it. Because like when one of my players throw behind the back pass, I'm like, yeah.
Really?
Dude, it's awesome, man. It's fun. At the end of the day, it's just a game.
That's true.
Right? So you have to empower some fun.
Of course, yeah.
You want to teach the appropriate things, but at the same time, it's like, hey, that guy was open. If he hits him a half a second earlier, it's a touchdown. It's a risk-reward game you got to play. So for me, if you take all the creativity out of it by micromanaging, like you're talking about, just right there, and it's not micromanaging, that is teaching. But like the first time it happens, if you pull them over and teach, or 8th time pull them over and teach, it's like, hey, like have a little bit of fun out there. If you're gonna throw it, what I would say, if you're gonna throw it, complete it. It's that simple.
I think it's true, especially at the high school level, even any sport. You know, if you're too micromanage on, say, the quarterback or the point guard, because those have the ball the most in the game. You know, like for quarterbacks, you're like, hey, be careful with the ball. Don't throw an interception. You know, his mind is about to be
confidence.
like,
Yeah.
oh boy, he's
Bye-bye.
locked up, done. You know, done. You know, and I think that happened with actually Mason. Coach was like, hey, don't turn it over. I think Braxton got hurt. Don't turn the ball over. And well, you know Mason's personality. He's over here like
Anybody's personality, dude.
no, any I can name any team.
Don't turn the ball over. Oh my gosh.
Okay, where's the ball?
Take a knee every
Someone
time.
else take the ball. I don't want
take a
it.
knee every time, Coach.
He's throwing it out of bounds. You know what I'm saying? So I think like that can also that can hinder them. You know, so I think if you can be like hey, like you're saying, loosen up, man. You gonna throw the ball? Hey, just throw it. You know, like be confident. You're good. Like throw it. You know, you got it. And then that he's like, oh, coach believes in me, and I got So
Now,
I definitely agree with you saying.
Do you know why you can tell them? Like, let's say, like I tell my players, let it fly. Shoot if you're open, shoot it. Do you know why I can tell them that?
Because they can shoot the ball. I don't know.
Because I teach them what is a good and what's a bad shot.
Okay. Yes.
Right. I teach them when to throw behind the back pass. I teach them when to throw it in that tight window. Right. When to recognize and when to basically do something and not do something.
Yeah, like situational. It's all situational stuff. Yeah.
It's all just IQ stuff. So if I teach my players, these are the specifics that I want to focus on. I don't care how you make the pass from here to here. That'll have them be more creative. And then if you don't get mad at them when they do it, right? Because you can't allow them creativity. Then be like, what are you doing throwing behind the back pass? Like that's not
because
that doesn't
then
work.
Like, yo, coach, you said it was cool, you know?
Yeah. So as long as you allow them, be like, hey, I don't care how we score a layup. I just want to score the layup there.
For sure. That's the mission, is to score the layup.
Yeah.
You know.
However you're going to get to that point, whatever. Because some people can actually throw a behind the back pass really well. Some people can't. So it's like I don't want to take that away from one person who can be a really fun player and get the crowd going, you know.
Going, motivate. Yeah, just the hype. Yeah, everything like that, you know.
So that was kind of the
momentum.
Micromanagement. Right? So now we're talking about the two hands-off or laissez-faire type leader. The leader must pull back from giving detailed direction, instead explaining what the mission is and how to accomplish it. The leader should explain the broad goal of the mission, the end state that is desired, and why the mission is important, and then allow the team to plan how to execute the mission. Kind of like what I just said.
Exactly.
I want you to score a layup.
Like you said.
I don't care how you do it.
Yeah.
Here are the passes I'm teaching you, but that's you.
Yeah.
So the common symptoms is a lot of these.
Yeah.
To indicate when a leader is too hands off with his team. Did you have anyone that you liked?
I think it was the end one.
Yeah. 6. There are too many people trying to lead. You know, I won't read everything like that, but that's pretty self-explanatory. Everyone's trying to lead. Nothing really gets done. There's a lot of discussion going on. There's not really like a person taking charge, you know, stuff like that. So I thought that was like a key thing that I don't say liked, because that's not what you want, but that's the one that I like saw the most.
Yeah. I think for me, they're all pretty good.
Yeah.
The number one thing for me was the lack of vision in what the team is trying to do and how to do it. Because I think a lot of coaches have the vision of what the team is trying to do. How do you do it, I think, is where they kind of falter, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to score as many points as possible. Here's how I want you to do it, and then freedom, right? Here's our 5-out shell offense, right? Here's the 5 things that I think are really good for us to do. Here's why this is a good shot, why this is a bad shot. Go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Have
it's
fun.
more teaching in the little details like that.
For sure.
But that, I think, is kind of the overall things. And again, they mentioned simple, clear, and concise.
Yeah. I think it's always going to fall. It's always falling back to that.
Yep. And then I think what you talked about is the too many coaches, not enough players.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about with
a little bit.
the too many people trying to lead, right?
Yeah. I think
That's AAU basketball, by the
I was
way.
going to say that's all. I think it's evident in a lot of places.
You know?
That's AAU basketball.
Yeah.
Because you'll have like 6 coaches on a team, and there'll be 4 players on the bench.
Yeah.
It's like, why do you have more coaches than players? Like, why? None of you are even coaching.
Yeah.
You know, it's just...
Like the hype man or something.
It's just that. They just want to be there. They want credit without the blame.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not the head coach. I'm on the bench.
I'm helping
just
out.
helping out.
Yeah, I'm just helping out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
But the key is balance. Maintaining an equilibrium where the troops have the guidance to execute, but at the same time the freedom to make decisions to lead. I think this is a really hard balance to get,
Yes.
especially at the high school level.
Yeah.
Just because you're empowering people who don't know how to live yet.
Yeah.
Really, that's a fact.
They're just figuring everything out. Every once in a while, you might get that, really mature dude that can handle a lot of things.
Braxton.
Yep. You get people like that.
Yeah.
You get a gem. You get one of those guys, and he can just do everything for you, and it's a lot of fun to play with him and coach him. I didn't coach him, but play with him for
How many players on a football team?
What, in high school? Yeah. I don't know. Could be 80 on a varsity team.
Right. So yeah. So you got to build it for the 80.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about the application of business. So he met with the team, with the CEO and the team, developed the leaders in their leadership program, left. Everything was great. When he came back, it was not great.
Nope. It was only 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
It was 6 weeks, and that's not a long time.
They were behind schedule.
Yeah.
The new product wasn't ready at all. It was just being bogged down. It was really bad. So Jocko kind of was like, all right, let's figure this out. So he kind of was peeling back some of the things, and so he asked the CEO, how often do you guys meet? And he said, we have meetings every day. There's a lot going on, and he needed to take ownership, extreme ownership, to keep things in check and on track.
Yeah.
Fair.
Makes sense.
Right? So basically they had the meeting every day, and it was like a 4-hour meeting.
It was like 2 hours, then lunch, then come back, and then these 45 minutes, and Jocko was thinking like, man, I don't know why this is so long. We got really detailed oriented,
It was basically every leader of every team member in the business.
Yeah, they all went in a circle,
had a presentation.
Talked. Yeah, every day.
So I mean, I can't even imagine that every day, man. Like
Jeez.
that would be.
Yeah.
I mean, when I worked at Best Buy, we would have a team meeting in the morning or at night to like recap the day and kind of just talk. But it was like 20 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, and it was just the most boring thing ever. And that was 20 minutes, and I had nothing to do. I just sat there and listened.
Yeah.
So it's like I can't even imagine. I looked at it basically like I was like, all right, I'm getting 20 minutes of my normal pay. I would just calculate how much time and how much money I was making. That's literally all I would do.
That would make it easier to sit there then.
Yeah, I mean a little bit.
I mean, yeah,
but then
but
it's like
still,
I could be home by the end of the meeting. It's like, okay, so basically, when they had this meeting, the CEO drilled down on each aspect of the planning execution and made decisions at every level. As I looked around the others in the meeting, I expected to see frustration. But most of those faces didn't look frustrated. They sat and stared and waited for their turn to talk and get questions answered by the CEO. There was no emotion, no frustration, no sense of urgency. There was no initiative in the group.
Yep.
I think we've all been there.
Oh, yeah.
At some point. So
I think it's easy to get there.
As soon as someone takes all the decisions out of your hand, you're basically just like, here's a problem, you fix it.
Well, yeah, like you feel like you have nothing else to like offer, Yeah.
So got down to the nitty gritty, where Jocko was like, "You're taking too much ownership." Too much ownership? The CEO asked. You didn't even tell me that was possible. So Jocko basically said, "You can't make every decision. You have to empower your team to lead, to take ownership. So you have to give them ownership. When a leader tries to own everything, to run every single move their team makes, it doesn't work." It might be the desire to make sure everything goes right, a lack of trust, ego, but leaders want to feel they're the person who is critical for every little decision. So this kind of goes to me with the assistant coach analogy. Yeah. You want to make sure your assistant coaches feel like they're in charge when you're really in charge.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the mind game you have to play, where it's like, I want you to do this. And really, you already know your overall mission and what you guys are trying to accomplish. You want them to feel empowered to do it, and it's their. You want to make it seem like it's their idea. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah.
Right. You want them. I mean, it might be their idea, but you want to, even if you already knew how to do it right, you want them to figure it out. I think that's like parenting too.
I can see that parallel.
Right. You want your kid to fall so he can walk. Or just fall if you're a really bad parent. But
yeah. From the ground, though, not from like the
basically, he was saying when you have meetings, stop being the easy button.
Yeah.
Right? By answering every question, solving every problem, and making every decision, you're doing their job for you.
For them.
So the last thing that I want to end on is you don't need to row the boat or even steer it. You just have to make sure it's heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I like that.
Is there anything else you had on chapter 2?
No, I mean, everything I wrote down is the same exact things that you actually touched on. So
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. So that was chapter 1 and 2 of the Dichotomy of Leadership. Two great chapters.
Yeah.
I mean, great. A lot of stuff to digest and really take over.
Yeah.
Next week.
Yeah, I'm glad we're doing it, chapter by chapter, because I feel like with this book is like you can really get into and really like break apart like what's going on.
Yeah,
It's
go over a ton of examples.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
how is your discipline?
It actually was really good. Last night, I went to my friend's house and they had like strawberry shortcake, and then an hour later they were eating ice cream. Didn't have either of them, And I'm not saying like strawberry shortcake is not the worst thing in the world, and I could have had it. And honestly, I was watching a video and all the strawberries were gone when I came back. So that's probably what I mean. So the ice cream, I think I've been doing pretty good discipline wise. I've been waking up every morning at about 5:30, going to the gym, lifting 6 days a week. This last week, so my discipline's been actually like really good. I did slip up one time, and I think I had. Me and Cry went for ice cream on Thursday night, So I did have a little bit of sugar, but it was a small cone, or it was a little something. I think it's okay to treat yourself every here and there. I don't think it was undisciplined thing, So I think I've been doing pretty good. How about you?
Oh, I've been terrible. It started early in the week where I had when you left last
on Sunday.
Yeah, when you left, I got sick.
I
was sick from Sunday to Wednesday.
Oof.
And that just was it just was terrible. And then so I didn't really eat terrible. Except we were watching Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And the Wicked Good Cupcakes came on.
Yeah.
So we ordered 2 of those for Mother's Day for me and Sam.
Yeah.
And I had a red velvet cupcake bowl thing. It was really good.
It sounds good.
And then I was pretty much fine. Like I made burgers and chicken and steak and like ate pretty healthy overall. And then I had a bowl of chocolate ice cream last night.
Yeah,
it was really good.
That's okay.
I don't regret it.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, but no, I just that sickness kind of set me back and it screwed me up, and I shouldn't have let it take over. So my personal discipline is not very good. My business discipline is really good.
I think that's key. Then
I'm really on point.
I don't want it to be the opposite. So.
Yeah. So I mean, that's great. I've been doing a daily update on that, and daily updates for the Patreon and my members, and just working on playbooks and things, and just that's been great. I mean, I still have a little more projects I need to get hammered down, but I mean, like overall, that's been growing. It's been great.
That's solid.
So that's obviously not the most important part, but it pays the bills. I think
everything goes. Yeah, I was gonna say everything plays a part in it.
Yeah, so that's been great, but yeah, I need to get better for sure. We'll be out of town this weekend, so we'll see how that goes. Being out of town screws up everything.
See, I was gonna say, it doesn't screw me. I'm watching your dogs, obviously, so like,
yeah, you'll be fine.
No, but Thursday and Friday, I go to the gym early in the morning, so I gotta drive 30 minutes there and 30 minutes back. It's like I don't want to do that, So I gotta be disciplined and do that.
Yeah, welcome to my life every day.
What do you mean your life every day?
30 minutes there, 30 minutes back. I don't want to do that.
For what?
The gym.
Your closest gym is 30 minutes away.
20.
Okay, 20 is way different than 30. By 10 minutes. Anyways, we're working on discipline.
Yeah, trying to get better discipline. So there you go, guys. There's our discipline checkup.
There you go.
We gotta be better.
Yeah,
I gotta be better.
We all gotta get better.
Yeah,
everyone.
Thank you for watching episode 4.
Thank you.
Of Leadership Builders podcast. We might be back next Monday, maybe next Tuesday. I'll be out of town, so we're still figuring out the recording schedule. We will have a podcast next week.
It will happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.